Namaste. Welcome to Urban Chatterati. And today I am with Abhijit Ayer Mitra to discuss the updates on the Oxford case and the Rashmi Samant and the rising cases of assault and hate crimes against Asians in the America and the Western world. So, Abhijit, welcome to the show.
Vetrivel, thanks for having me as always.
So, Vijit, what is happening in the Oxford? What is the update regarding Rashmi Samant, who was hounded by certain bigots in the Oxford University, and the university did nothing about it?
So I've been talking a lot with the government about this, and what we hear is there are a lot of things that have started coming to the fore, right? First of all, is the fact that Indian students that are part of this Oxford Hindu Union were involved in going after her, which hasn't gone down well at all. Uh, and they threatened her basically. The second part of this is that Oxford was given a $3 million cash by then Prime Minister Manmohan Singh in 2012, and following that, the Chancellor or the Vice Chancellor of Oxford visited Delhi. He took pictures with Prime Minister Modi, and used that entire opportunity for fundraising in India. And apparently that has really riled a lot of people in the government up, because they're like, you can't do this and then display such blatant Hindu phobia out there. The third thing that has really riled up the government is the fact that this fellow Abhijit Sarkar, against whom they're refusing to take action, you read his paper. It's a apologia uh, uh, Churchill, of Churchill's role in the Great Famine, in the Great Bengal Famine. He basically says that these evil Hindus, they were the ones really responsible, because they were withholding funds, they were withholding food from Muslims in order to drop their demand for Pakistan, and they contributed significantly to the famine. So, and mind you, this is something that Oxford has approved of, and it's been funded by the British government through the British Academy. Okay, imagine today, say the German government funding something about how the death rates in concentration camps amongst Russians and Jews was very high, because the Judenrat was in charge of it, and the Judenrat never raised issues, and the Judenrat was the one that was withholding Russians. So it's gone down very badly. It's blown up big time in the government, but let's see what comes of it. But all of this ties into this classic Asian hate, except of course in India, most of the haters are Indians themselves, which is quite different from what's happening in America, where
Because it's
it's
not Asian hate in case of India, it's Hindu hatred.
it's Hindu hatred in the case of India. And what you're seeing, why is it Hindus? Or in America, why is it, say, specific communities, Koreans, Vietnamese, and for a long time Hindus as well, have been targeted? Of course, Hindus, it's mostly been verbal targeting. This time it's much more. It's been a actual physical assaults on Asians. Now we need to understand who the attackers are. In the sex parlor attack, or the what's called euphemistically a massage parlor attack, the guy was white. But all the other instances, there was a Syrian, and the two instances of people getting bashed up, one in a metro train and the other outside a building, were by black men. Now, you've basically created the narrative here saying that all privilege is bad, and who disputes, who physically demonstrates that this whole privilege notion is rubbish? It's Asians. There isn't a single Asian country except Thailand that wasn't occupied, where and the occupation was absolutely horrific. You look at the occupations of Vietnam, be it by the French, be it by the Americans, whatever. Uh, 3 million people were killed in the Vietnam War. Imagine saying the Vietnamese are privileged, okay, or the Koreans. Do you know how many people the Japanese Imperial Army killed in Korea, or how many people died in the Korean War? You can't claim privilege out there, and yet all these people, they land up in America and they have extremely successful lives. They haven't lived a victimhood narrative. They've always looking to the future, looking forward, and they completely disprove this whole postmodernist woke nonsense that's being peddled out there. So the first reason is this hatred, that when a community breaks the stereotype, and mind you, Hindus are like that. If you look at the economic figures in Britain, what it shows you is there's been migration from the whole of the so-called South Asia, and yet Hindus end up being the most prosperous and the least crime prone. Okay, you look at the crime statistics, it is incredible. For a community of about 800,000 in the UK, we have the lowest crime figures around. And what's happened is that you see the Bangladeshi and Pakistani crime rates, they are through the roof. So clearly there's something cultural about it, right? But let's come back to America and what we're seeing out there. What's happened out here is, number one, you've had all these communities essentially break the stereotype. Hindus, Vietnamese, Koreans, Chinese Americans as well, and things like that. And I don't need to go into what all China faced, both under the white man and under the Japanese. And the second issue has been, you've legitimized violence against privilege. Not just white people, but against privilege, right? So basically, you had all these politicians, Kamala, Joe Biden, everyone support these Black Lives Matter riots. You had them support all these Antifa riots. You've basically had them support pretty much everything against white people under the sun. Of course, you don't say white people that's racist, you claim it's privilege. Where did you think that anger was going to be directed? At anybody who's seen to be privileged or is deemed essentially white adjacent, you know? So basically, we're almost white, apparently. So this is the kind of crap. So all of this entire system has been created by wokery. Now, for that one guy who was a sex addict who attacked the massage parlor, they were all willing to talk about white privilege, right? And how the entire narrative of white deprivation has fed into all of this. But when it comes to Black people attacking Asians or Muslim terrorists attacking Asians, or anyone for that matter, they don't want to accept any responsibility for their actions. See, their actions are all pure. It doesn't lead to violence, but everybody else's actions are completely impure, apparently.
Basically, what you are saying, and you have talked about this earlier as well, Abhijit, that this entire wokeism is just a reaction of the racist white people, that they're pretending to be woke to reestablish the racial white supremacy by suppressing everyone. So first they will go after the people within the society, then ultimately this construct will be directed towards the Asians, the Hindus, and other people as well. So they want to basically throw these people out of America because it's difficult to attack them by calling that these are Chinese, Vietnamese, or Hindus who are taking over our jobs. But once you say these are privileged communities who are oppressing, who are almost white, as you're saying, the whiteness is not limited to the whites. So it's legitimate to attack them and throw them out of the job. And we're seeing that happening in the universities at least with respect to Hindus. Rashmi Samant is the perfect example.
Not just Rashmi Sawant, it's also the way in which Hindu students were targeted by this woman, Audrey Trashke. And mind you, she's been doing it consistently. The university management first just threw all their concerns under the carpet. And then suddenly they claim that they've been, after there's a big outrage about it, oh my God, we've suddenly been acclimatized to this. Give me a break. If you didn't know that, that just shows how trashy your management is and how out of sync they are with the overall debates going on, right? Mind you, you need coercive power in order for either money or absolute coercion in order for these people to learn their lesson. And I think that is finally kind of dawned on the Indian government in the Rashmi Sawant case, at least. I think it brought it home quite vigorously to the government. And they're looking at it now. You've seen Rutgers on the back foot now. New College and this boy Abhijit Sarkar have just shut up completely. They haven't been tweeting at all. So clearly they're under a lot of pressure. But a lot of pressure is, a lot more pressure is probably required, yes. But, this trend that we're seeing in America, given one of the things that keeps Indians safe is they're not there in middle America, where the economic deprivation is the most. They tend to live in the two coastal areas, right? But you will invariably, as this anger against privilege spreads, you will see invariably that Hindus specifically are going to be targeted. They are going to be targeted and they are going to be killed, or a lot worse, and there's nothing you can do about it. Mind you, did you even notice there was a Pakistani man, Anwar something, who was killed in that horrible carjacking video? Did you see that, by two black girls?
Horrific.
They weren't even concerned that they'd killed a man. When she comes out of the car, she's concerned about her not having her phone. And she wants to go back into the car to get her phone out. And what then happens after that is their lack of remorse is completely zilch. And what does CNN do? CNN labels it so clearly to avoid labeling the guilt onto them. Its headline actually reads, "Carjacking gone wrong, man dies in unfortunate accident." This is like the suicide bomber didn't do it. It was the Semtex that did it.
Basically, suicide bombing gone wrong.
Basically,
what do you mean carjacking gone wrong? I mean, was it supposed to go right?
Exactly right. So, this is the kind of trash we're beginning to see in America. Of course, in Britain, it's a lot more because, speech crimes are actually being legislated by the government. And you would have expected some kind of pushback from the Boris Johnson, from one of the biggest majorities that the Conservatives have had in, 50, 60 years almost. They're not, which is particularly worrying. Right? Let's see. I mean, I'm not very hopeful about this, but obviously something's going to happen.
Yeah, but let's say when we come to America again, we heard all these stories that Trump is empowering these supremacists, that Trump is empowering these assaults on the minorities, on the blacks, and so on. But what we're seeing, the situation has got much, much worse under the Biden administration, despite having the most diverse cabinet ever in the American history and so on. And you have this, what is her name? The South Indian lady who is the vice president?
Komali?
Kamala Harris, come on. So
oh, yeah. Sorry, Komali is Tamil for clown. Sorry. It's the same thing. Komali, Kamala, what's the big difference? We call her Komali Harris.
Have some solidarity with the South Indian.
Not really. She never identified as South Indian, right? Even her niece, Meena, they never identified as Indian till they finally realized it 2-3 weeks before the election. Remember? Before that, they were claiming that they were black.
Yeah. So, yeah, true. I mean, in a democracy, votes matter. So anyway, you have this Kamala Harris as the vice president. You have the very diverse cabinet. Yet the attacks on the minorities, on the ethnic minorities, on the people have increased. The racism has increased manifold under Biden administration.
And it's not just attacks, it's also systemic racism. You heard about that school in Boston, school or college in Boston that shut down because too many of the eligible people who cleared the entrance turned out to be white and Asians. Right. They are now talking about reducing the number of Asians. They're going to set a maximum number of limits on the number of Asians that join college because apparently taking Asians in isn't very diverse. Right. So they are introducing systemic racism against Asians out there. And mind you, this is being done irrespective of the way. See, 75% of Indian Americans tend to vote Democrat, but 98% of Vietnamese Americans tend to vote Republican. Right. So they're basically trying to punish everybody. The Vietnamese understand what's happening. The Indians still haven't woken up to it as usual, or they're usually part of the woke brigade doing a mea culpa out there.
But let's see, in the Britain, you are saying that the Oxford has been raising lots of funds from the Indian NRIs and also from India. I mean, it may not be the large percentage proportion of their funding, but still it's a growing proportion of their funding. But why? And we've seen that in the case of Ashoka University as well. I mean, let's talk about India as well. There is the rich Hindus who are funding these institutions, and all these institutions are producing is anti-Hindu hatred and legitimizing assault and persecution of the Hindus. What Audrey is doing, what Priyamvada Gopal is doing in Cambridge, what Oxford, what Abhijit Sarkar is doing in Oxford, this is basically preparing a ground on normalizing large-scale attacks on the Hindus. So why are Hindus doing it?
Look, Hindus have never, this is what we were talking about. An identity is based on substance and salience, what connects us and what divides us. In the Hindu case, it's always been this, we're so divided amongst ourselves. So there are fundamental issues out here. Remember, the large part of people who have immigrated to the West were people who had the privilege or the intellectual capital to immigrate out there, which was invariably the upper castes. Brahmins and other, Brahmin allied types. Right? You look at San Francisco, for example, it's almost entirely Telugu and Tamil Brahmins. Sundar Pichai is what? Indra Nooyi is what? I mean, they're not exactly persecuted communities out here, So one is an Iyengar, the other one's an Iyer, or both are Iyengar or both are Iyer. I don't know what it is, but they're all Brahmins. So you look at all these people out there, they've all come from privilege who've gone out there, who have now joined this anti-Hindu bandwagon. And, much of it is the failure of the Indian state. Because, education, knowledge, and we're separating knowledge from education out here. Knowledge is what you seek for yourself. Education are the tick marks that you have to check off to have a sort of formal degree.
Yeah. And
the problem with the education we give is that your sense of nationhood is based on time. Your sense of identity is based on this one time between 1920 to 1947, where you created something called a freedom movement, essentially glorifying one family, and your sense of nationhood basically revolves around loyalty to that one family and to that one point of time. Now, to a country as diverse as India, that cannot be your identity. So our education system has basically failed to create those bonds. And this is why you remember Ambedkar, he realized what was happening. And that's why Ambedkar wanted national service for all young people to compulsorily be forced into the army for 2-3 years, because it would create those bonds. It would create those, when you have to look after each other's lives, it breaks down a lot of social conditioning you've had about class, caste, and things like that. And of course, nobody listened to him, because they probably realized that national service was the best way of, breaking down what got them votes.
And also Ambedkar wanted that the syllabus in the schools and the universities should be decided by the market forces. You should make the syllabus of the universities as required by the industry. Of course, no one did that. Aaj tak nahi hua.
Absolutely. But notice this sort of inferiority complex that Hindus have. You're very happy if somebody pets you on the head like a dog and says, good boy, woof, woof, here, take a bone. They don't even give you the bone. That's the problem. It's just saying good boy, shh. Sorry, those are my, see where I say good boy, my kids start barking. Yeah. So, okay. So what happens is, this is a microcosm of what happened at Ashoka. They weren't interested in education. They weren't interested in the quality of education. The only thing they were interested in is getting big names so that you can have the validation. So clearly, they were not providing knowledge. They were providing an education. Right? And so much so for Ashoka.
Yeah,
but I think Makarand Paranjpe is the one who summed it up best in his piece on this, where he said, this was all about getting big names. It was about getting social validation for the founders. It was about getting social validation for the students. It wasn't about giving them an education.
Yesterday, I was at JNU, and sometimes it's always fun to talk to these radical left kind of people. And their take on entire Ashoka episode was that after pandemic, the Ashoka is under some stress when it comes to funding. So it is cutting down the salary, and these professors didn't want the salary to be reduced. So they created a cause and they resigned. This is what left is saying in JNU. But anyway, so coming back to America and the Britain, and this entire anti-Asian hate. So let's say Hindus are not going to do anything. This is highly unlikely, such a divided house. We are more concerned with the purity of blood and purity of food, not about the survival even. But let's say, what are the others doing? Chinese, Vietnamese, Koreans, how they are now trying to fight back against this kind of racist assault under the liberal administration in America.
So, the only real intellectual assault on this entire woke liberal complex is coming from the French government. And they're fighting a very lonely battle against it, right? But like all things France, France has this spirit, we might get defeated, we might get occupied, but we'll still fight kind of spirit, like Charles de Gaulle did during the First World War. And the social pushback, I believe, will start with the Vietnamese, with the Koreans and the Chinese in America. Now, remember, why is it that wherever they go, the Vietnamese, the Koreans, the Chinese, and the Indians, along with the Jews, are so well off? I mean, nobody can accuse the Jews of having privilege. I mean, Auschwitz is not privilege. Treblinka is not privilege. Sachsenhausen is not privilege. Okay, the Bengal famine is not privilege. Mughal rule is not privilege, right? Having half your country killed off by Japanese imperial forces is not privilege. And yet these people go abroad, and wherever they go, they are the lowest crime, best performing communities. Why is that? And see, these are things that this entire woke movement simply does not want to answer. Right? The downside of it is that it takes us back to a very dark past that we had, which was race science and Nazi race theory, which, the fear has always been that we can't have, that things are kind of going back to that place. The reversal of it is perfectly fine. You can claim that some people are naturally, as in white people are naturally psychopathic, white people are naturally violent, white people are naturally murderous, and things like that. But anything that race science taught you has to be excluded. Okay? And that's very dangerous because you're excluding scientific discovery. Of course, race science was complete quack science.
Yeah.
But what happens? How do you explain the fact that people who come from extremely disprivileged backgrounds in Korea, China, and Vietnam are able to do so well consistently?
As you said, some anthropological study the role of culture and so on. Maybe they have not become woke yet. They have not been Americanized in the today's term.
Right. And with Indians, the problem is consistently this inferiority complex.
Yeah. So, Abhijit, when we talk about Oxford case and the anti-Asian and anti-Hindu hatred in the British universities, what should be done to the Oxford now when it comes to the Rashmi Samant case? How can she get the justice? Because the people who hounded her, she had a mental breakdown. She was in the hospital. She had a BP problem at such a young age. I mean, she has been literally hounded by these people. And
so you do know that criminal cases have been filed with the National Commission for Women against all those Oxford Hindu Society holders, right?
Yeah.
We're probably waiting for them to come back to India because anyway, they've all gone off on Indian passports. So, they deleted all their profiles from the Oxford Hindu Society website.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, but of course, people took screenshots of it, and FIRs have been filed against them. As I understand, a lot of FIRs have been filed against them for criminal intimidation and whatnot.
Even in India as well?
In India.
And this Gurmehar Kaur who was gaslighting Rashmi Samant?
I don't know about that, but I haven't heard about. I haven't gotten to the micro details, but all I know is
I saw her tweet. She was basically justifying. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, anyways.
Criminal cases have been filed, and the National Commission for Women has also been approached because many of these people doing this were men. So I think when they return for their holidays or things like that, there are going to be consequences for them.
I think there should be consequences.
Yeah. Number two, I have always said you need to have a racism offset tax or a Hindu phobia offset tax. Okay, which is that anybody studying in Oxford or anybody taking or anybody even entering the college in which Priyamvada Gopal teaches or anybody going to Rutgers, they need to pay 500% tax in India to offset the fact that they're subsidizing racism in America or the UK.
Interesting. And especially for taking Priyamvada Gopal's course, then you have to pay 1000% Hindu hatred tax.
If you're taking Priyamvada Gopal's course, then you shouldn't be given a passport to leave in the first place.
But anyway, so those are interesting ideas. I hope the government will listen to you, Abhijit. But anyways, what does the future looks like in the Western world? What are your projections and predictions about Asians and Hindus in UK and in the America and also in Canada, where the Khalistanis and Islamists are running amok?
Right. I'm waiting for this entire Khalistani Islamist union to end. And trust me, it's going to end. Because, when you have a community like the Khalistanis, they're not going to get along with the Islamists for much longer. They're going to tolerate that temple on Pakistani soil only for so long before something happens, right? They fundamentally cannot tolerate any expression of religious freedom that isn't Islamic in Pakistan, as opposed to, say, a place like Oman or the UAE, where they've developed socially so much that they're perfectly cool with it. There's never been any threats, never any harassment or things like that. It's like, yeah, man, just do whatever you want and things like that. And, it's particularly more important in the case of Oman and the UAE, because remember, they are on the Arab Peninsula, which is considered, sacred land and things like that. And they're perfectly fine with all of this happening out there. So remember, even within the Sunnis, there's this huge thing. You have these evolved Sunnis who don't have time for jihad and, religious bigotry and zealotry and all of that. What was the last Omani terrorist you ever heard about? Exactly. The UAE has reached there about 15, 20 years later. Of course, Oman achieved it for a different...
First Omani terrorist did I hear about? None.
Yeah, I think there were one or two people from the UAE in the September 11 bombings. But see, as society keeps progressing, even that's going to change. Saudi Arabia, what MBS has set in motion, that is also going to change. Pakistan, remember, this kind of bigotry only thrives when resource competition gets worse. So things are going to get worse in Pakistan, and invariably this Khalistani Islamist alliance is going to fray. Because remember, the Islamists in America are not people who do very well.
Yeah.
Of course, you will have the occasional toady like Ilhan Omar, who's done very good for herself, who basically exploits everybody else because she wants them to continue being in penury, because unless they think out of a resource-constrained mindset, out of perpetual anger, be it against non-Muslims or against privilege, thinking that they're geniuses who have been denied their due share or whatever, as long as they have something to rage about, they'll continue to vote for a hate monger like her.
Yes. What about America, by the way? What does the future looks like?
Look, we've discussed this before. I think America is heading towards a civil war of kinds, because what the army is now doing is that they're completely scrubbing any nationalist thought, and anybody with Republican sympathies are being kicked out of the army.
Really?
Yeah. It's on full swing.
That's half the population of America. pro-Republican.
Well, it is. And that is why the more you restrict funding opportunities and job opportunities for them, the worse it is going to get. So, for example, Black Lives Matter and Antifa are allowed to crowdsource and crowdfund their defenses. But God forbid you're a white man caught crowdfunding. They don't let you do that.
Okay, scary predictions about the future, Abhijit. We will have to wait and see how these things pans out. But I have more faith in the Koreans, Vietnamese, and Chinese at this point that they will fight back against this wokery, this racism in the America. And let's hope for the best for Hindus as well.
Insha Ganesha, Vel Vetri Vel.
Thank you, audience, for listening to us. And please don't forget to subscribe and join the channel. See you soon.